Thanks, Bree. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tiger Talk Tuesday. Great to see you all, as always. And I'm excited to actually reminisce about the 2013 water polo season. I don't know how many of you in the gallery were kind of on campus or close to campus as it was happening and transpiring, but I clearly remember being on campus while that team was making its run. And then I was with the men's basketball team at the time when we were coming back. This is just my memory of the championship game. We were coming back from Utah State, and I remember everybody scrambling to get from the airport to try and watch that championship match. So vivid memories of 2013. I had to watch it online, and maybe some of you were there, but great memories. And we're joined today by James Graham, the head coach, of course. Also, Casey Fleming, Alex Obert, and Kevin Oliveira. Goran Tomasevic was supposed to be here, but he is unavailable, so Goran is not going to be here with us today, but I'm sure we'll be just fine. So welcome to you all, and I want to start the way I always start by asking everybody how they're doing, and we'll start with Coach Graham.
Doing well, just same situation, trying to stay safe and trying to find ways to help the team get better, make sure everyone's doing well. So it's always nice to get a chance to see all these faces, and it's pretty fun watching everybody come on here and seeing all these past players and alumni. And so I'm looking forward to this.
Cool. Alex, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Just same as James, staying safe. I'm out here in the desert in Arizona, still trying to work out and stay in shape as best as I can, and happy to see everyone, and just got to catch up with some old teammates real quickly. And I think that was a great highlight, and I'll forever be thankful for it.
Awesome. Casey?
Yeah, doing well. Just finding ways to stay active during quarantine. I'm teaching yoga twice a week and just trying to bide in the time so we can get back into a pool.
And last but not least, Kevin?
I'm doing great. Just hanging out, just got out of work. I'm cleaning my hands and I'm not working out, that's for sure.
Yeah, we established that before we let everybody in. You're down in South Florida, right?
Yeah, like Central Florida. It's in Gainesville.
Okay. Yep. Gator country. Let's just dive in and we'll go right into the expectations going into 2013. I'm going to go around the horn with this question, and I'll start with Coach Graham. Did you have a sense that it would be the special season that it ended up becoming?
Yeah, I mean, it was part of a plan. It was something that we had worked on, and I mean, we were looking at it in 2011, so we were hoping it was going to be on paper. That was the idea. But we said going into the season, it's going to be a bunch of one-goal games, and we're going to find out which way they're going to break. So it was a plan to have a great year, but we knew it was going to be a challenge every game.
Kevin, you were a senior on that team, and it was your second after beginning your career at JUCO. But did you have those same expectations going into 2013?
Yeah, I think there was definitely a buildup, from saving up a bunch of cash to getting cool new gear. We're all pretty pumped about that, and just knowing that Goran and Balash were redshirting the year before. So we're all ramping up and yeah, we had definitely high expectations for ourselves.
Alex, you're a junior on that team out of Del Oro High School. What were your thoughts going into the season?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be part of kind of the first team in 2011 that kind of had the big expectations, and we ended up not doing as well as we wanted to that year, but I really think my experience from 2011 led me into 2013, and we kind of saw the same stuff on the wall. We saw we had a great senior class and a lot of great players, and I think we knew we could be better that year, but we also took what we learned in 2011, and that pushed us to 2013. So I think that was a huge learning experience for me, and I was a freshman that year, so I learned a lot.
So Casey, you were the youngin on that team of the group here. You were a sophomore coming from San Jose. Did you get that same sense that you had the type of upperclassman leadership on that team to make it a special year?
Yeah, 100%. For me, it was all about just trying to learn from the guys I was around. We had a lot of talent, a lot of different types of leadership. And so for me, it was just kind of going with a learning mindset, trying to see how I could learn from Eddie, from Goran, from Obert, and all the different types of styles we played. And then just like my favorite part was we were coming in as the underdogs with high expectations on where we wanted to go and just having fun along the journey the entire way through.
Before I go any further, Coach Graham, you can check me on this one. Is it game or match when talking about water polo? Because I get that confused going from sport to sport.
It could be both. Most of the time in the U.S. we talk about game. We say game, but both
Okay.
are used.
Okay. I keep flip-flopping on it, and so I'll just go with game. But I want to start, and it might seem like an unconventional place to start, but I want to start at the end of your season when you guys faced USC in the national championship game. You faced them 4 times that year. You beat them once. Obviously, there was some familiarity going into that national championship game. What were your expectations going up against USC for a 4th time? And I'll start with James.
Well, we knew it was going to be a tough game. And like you said, we were 1-2 at that point in time with them. We played them well once and lost. We played really well and beat them handily in our house. And then the 3rd time at the MPSF championships leading into it, they just had a spectacular day. And so we knew we had to make some adjustments going into that game, and we did. We made some changes in the lineup, and we made some changes to our defense for the first time. And so we just knew we had to go out and, Ted Leland, he was our athletic director, and he used to tell a story about Bill Walsh, and he used to say that, you don't have to be great today, but someone does. Right. And so we kind of talked about that, and when it's your time, you need to step up. And so that's kind of what we were hoping for. And just to get the ball rolling early in the game and get some good momentum and settle ourselves down, because USC had won 5 in a row at that point in time, and they were experienced, and we needed to kind of make sure that we just got settled.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and this is going back a ways, but you guys did hang with them, right? I mean, it was fairly close.
In the national championship game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, double overtime. We were up by 3 with 3.5 minutes to go in the 4th, which, life happened.
If you go back into that moment, as painful as it may be, if you go back to the last 3 minutes, what would, looking back in retrospect, what would you have done differently, if anything?
Paid the refs? I don't know. So the reffing, was maybe slightly different in the last few minutes, we'll say, but we knew that was going to happen. Like, that's just kind of how water polo operates. We talked about it during a time, and that we said, I said to them, if we can make a couple power play stops, we're going to be national champions. And they hit some great shots, and that's the way it was. And then they tied it up and went to overtime, and then we battled it out in overtime. So, they laid it on the line. There's not much we could have done.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, you scored a goal in that game, in the national title game. What else do you remember from that game outside of your goal?
Right. I mean, I remember everything about it, honestly. I think we started out great. And like James said, we just kind of choked with 3 minutes left in the game. And yeah, unfortunately, it happened definitely not the way we were expecting to go out. But I remember there were some crucial plays towards those last 3 minutes. I had a bad pass to Petro, come from the bottom to the top of the pool. That led to a turnover, counterattack goal. I had a mistake when substituting, so I think I popped in a little bit earlier as well, and I think it was a 5-meter call, but then Malkus blocked it or something like that. I remember there was some issues with that, but I was super pumped about that. I mean, everything. I remember the crowd. I remember James. I remember Eddie going absolutely nuts in that game. I think he scored 7 goals or something like that. So, I mean, it was awesome. Looking back on it, sure, it sucks, but it, we lived out Moneyball for sure.
And we'll get into why you're saying that here in a little bit. But Alex, take us through that day from your recollection.
Yeah, I mean, it actually is weird. I started out, me and Kevin were roommates for that trip, so it's weird that we're both back here together. But watching The Last Dance, Reggie Miller said something pretty interesting about Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and he said we were the better team, we were more talented, but they had the championship experience. And in the last 3 minutes, that comes out. And I think that you could see that maybe in our game too. We were by far the most talented team in the country. But those USC guys had played, and most of those guys that were seniors had played in 4 straight finals. They'd been there. This was a third national championship game or something like that for our entire school. It was the first time we'd ever been there. Luckily, James has gotten back there now, so there's more experience. But I really think when Reggie Miller said that about the 98 Bulls, it reminded me of us, because we were by far the most talented team, but we maybe didn't have the same championship experience that they had, being in 4 national championship games before that. So it was a hell of a game. We played our asses off. I'm sure all of these guys still haven't gotten over it. I can tell you all the mistakes I made in those last 3 minutes, and they haunted me for years and continued my water polo career, but I've finally gotten over them and use them to make myself better now. And it will forever be a special day in my life, just like the 2013 was one of the best years of water polo in my entire life. So yeah, it was a great game, but we didn't come out on top.
You brought up a very interesting point about championship experience. Give us some insight into that, into what it looked like to look across the pool, and how did USC kind of show its championship pedigree? I know there's the familiarity with them, like they've been in that moment before, but what other traits did they display that would cause you to say that about them having that championship experience? Because it's a very interesting thing in all of sports, talking about what that pedigree is.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to end up being roommates with the guy who hit the game winner on me in the last second, Nikola Vavic. So we got in discussions about that. And I think the biggest thing for them was it was just another game. It was a normal game. And for us, it wasn't a normal game. We had the whole city of Stockton behind us. If you looked up into the fans, even though it was at Stanford, it was the biggest UOP home game ever. I think we had close to 5,000 UOP Tiger fans in the stands. And for them, this was their 4th time. They were okay. If they hadn't won, they still had 3 rings, those seniors. If they did, it was great. They had their 4th. And I think now looking back at it, I think it's a bigger learning experience for us than it was for them. But now that we kind of are building this culture at UOP where we have this championship experience, hopefully later down the road, the guys will be able to use what we learned in 2013 to become national championships and take the next step forward. So it was a great experience for all of us, and I've used it in my everyday life and in my water polo career to this day.
That's awesome. Casey, as I mentioned, you were the younger guy on the team. You're a sophomore. You're in your 2nd season, and now you find yourself playing for a national title. What was that day like for you?
On the way there, definitely nervous. But as soon as we hit the pool, it was like another day around the pool. The biggest mentality I had was I wanted to do 2 things. I wanted to soak up the experience. So like seeing the crowd, like those are the things that stick with me the most. The crowd, watching Benji celebrate in USC's face, like every time we scored a goal, everyone was getting up and going. And then my like role, like just knowing what my role on the team was just to swim really fast around these guys, annoy them so much that they want to punch me in the face. And a couple of them did it. And so like my mentality was to make them play my game, which is a very, very annoying game to follow because it's just around in circles and around in circles. And so like I just wanted to continuously learn from the guys around me, and then honestly just like live in the moment. And it was a great experience. And like Obert said and Kevin said, like there's those things that we think back on that we could have fixed, and those small little mistakes. But overall, like it was an amazing experience to be a part of.
I know I'm going in reverse order here, but now I'm going to go to the game that got you there, which was the 11-10 win versus Stanford in the semifinals. Amazing game. James, can you take us through that game from your first person vantage point?
Yeah, I mean, we felt like we liked our matchup against Stanford. We played them a number of times that year. We were successful against them, but they were a very dangerous team. I mean, I do believe we were the most talented team out there, but Stanford had a ton of firepower, especially outside on the perimeter. some of the most prolific scorers. So there was a lot of, reasons to be worried about them, and then also having to have the opportunity to have to play them in their house. So in that game, it was kind of a back and forth game, but I think the general vibe on the team was that we had this. We were confident in that situation. We knew we can get it done. We actually had to come from behind a little bit. I remember Eddie having to streak down the side of the pool and pull up and just rip a ball from like 6 meters wide and kind of put us right back in the game. And I think he tied it up with that. And then in the final few seconds, Alex and Kevin right here, the combo. I listen to this over all the time because we do a recruiting presentation where we play this clip, and one of our former assistants, Raphael Kremp, he's commentating the situation, and it's like, Kevin, Obi, and then everyone goes crazy, and because Kevin hits Obert on the post for the game winner with 30 seconds left to go. So, I just remember all those moments and just probably I don't know, just so much pride in the team and so much love and camaraderie coming out of that game. It was a great feeling.
Alex, take us through what it was like to score the game winner in that one.
Yeah, it was a great situation. We were actually running a play that wasn't really designed for me. It was more designed for Goran. But I'll never forget, Kevin just looked at me as we were swimming in. He said, "I'm throwing this at you. I don't care if you're open or not." And that was kind of the relationship me and Kevin had. We actually had gone on recruit trips together out of high school. And then he actually went to JUCO. I went to JUCO for a year, and then we came back to Pacific together. So we'd been close and known each other for a really long time. And I'll never forget his face. He just looked at me and said, "Get ready to catch this." And I knew it was coming. It didn't matter who was on me. Kevin was hucking it, and I was going to catch it and score it. So it was one of those plays where you were going into it and you knew exactly what was going to happen. You knew we were going to score. And it was a great memory and something that I'll cherish forever.
Kevin, can you expand on that?
Yeah, thank God Goran's not on this call because I was not going to pass him the ball. There's no way. No, but yeah, like Obi said, definitely on that last play, Goran was option one, just the way the play was set up. Obi is option two, but just how everything lined up, it was the go-to play for sure. Yeah, let's focus on this game. This is the happy thoughts. This is the good one.
Alex, for you, I mean, this is a lifetime moment, right? I mean, where does this rank in your pantheon of moments that you've had in your life? Everybody dreams, no matter the sport, of having this type of moment. What's it like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was great, but at the same time, we kind of had to flush that moment an hour after the game or 45 minutes after the game to get ready for the championship game. One thing I remember the most, and as James said, Stanford had a lot of great players, and they've become my teammates now, was just the fact that we were playing at Stanford, and these guys were so mad because it was a home game for us. They thought they were going to come in there and they were going to have all their fans, but we legitimately had 3/4 of the stands filled with Pacific Tigers, and these guys still complain to this day about it, about how we played them in the semifinals at their house and it was a home game for us, and they were so jealous. And it's funny to shoot the shit with some of those guys that I played against then and just tell them, like, yeah, you guys, your student section sucks, your fans suck. Like, we had to drive an hour and a half and we tripled the amount of people you had there, and the pride in the school and the city of Stockton then was something that I'll always remember. Water
polo you, baby.
Yeah,
they didn't know it at the time. Casey, you scored a goal in that game, right?
Yeah. That playing in that pool for me was a little bit meaningful because I grew up playing in that club. I grew up practicing there every single day, every single summer. And so I came out with a vendetta, and I really wanted to beat my coach, John Barnea, and just Stanford in general. And so every time we'd score, it was almost where I couldn't even hear someone that was 3 feet away from me because our crowd was so loud. So that was probably one of the memories that stuck with me the most from 2013 was how loud our crowd was, filling up, like Obert said, 3/4 of the stands when Stanford only had a quarter filled. And so for me, every time we celebrated any type of goal all season long, we would go crazy. But those games, every time we scored, it was you could barely talk to someone and say, "Hey, nice pass, nice job on this. Let's guard this guy," because the crowd was just going so loud for so long.
Such great memories. And I do remember hearing about the atmosphere for that game at Stanford, that Pacific legit took it over, and that's really cool. James, frame what this team meant to you from a career standpoint for you, and also from a historical standpoint as far as Pacific men's water polo goes. The reason I ask for you is because, like, you made a name really for yourself on campus in 2013. Like, everybody was talking about James Graham, and you've continued to build on that. You've been back to a national championship game since then. But what did this team mean for you?
I mean, this team for sure helped build my reputation and the program's reputation. I mean, a lot of who we are as a program or what people think about us has to do with the 2013 team, but they were kind of like the guys who took the ball over the goal line. There was a lot of work that was laid in advance of that by a number of guys. Some of these people I see on the call right now that did this work that set us up to be successful that year. And it was about building. I think if you ask all these guys, every year we were building off the last year till that point. It wasn't like we were here, jump. It was really just this kind of building to that point, and these guys got the ball across the goal line, and so they shattered the idea that there's a big four, water polo programs, and changed that mentality, and they put us on the map for sure.
Kevin, you mentioned something earlier about you guys were the Moneyball team. Can you get into that a little bit, and then I'll bring it around and kind of finish it with James. But I want to get you guys' thoughts on what that philosophy is, and then I'm going to have James hammer it home. But you can start, Kevin.
Yeah. So it probably stems from James' obsession with numbers. That probably a good starting point, and then obviously the movie, the baseball movie, Moneyball. So we definitely watched that as a team. I feel like multiple times. It was definitely like a movie night at James' house kind of vibe. And I mean, it's the whole concept of how the film and that particular team, the A's, was made up, right? So it was a bunch of people with certain skill sets for a particular position that just kind of came together to focus on their particular role, and then how that can be joined together as a team. And I feel like that's exactly what we were. We weren't very traditional. We had a lot of Euros. We had a lot of JUCO players. We had James was still younger in his coaching career as well. So what we just talked about, kind of like a stepping stone in his career. So I feel like that all kind of plays parts of why, the whole Moneyball thing.
Casey, can you expand on that? And then I'll ask Alex.
Yeah, just kind of like playing the odds and seeing what's our highest scoring probability, like what's the most likely kind of play scenario that we can put ourselves in to try to get the most goals while not giving up the most, and then trying to have as many coin flips as James would say so many times, and trying to draw ejections every time. And so we kind of just built a system around that where we were trying to play the highest odd shots and the things that would give us the most probability to score goals, win, and then play within a system that works while doing that.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was an easy system to buy into. I was an engineer in school, so I always liked numbers. So it was pretty easy when James would lay out the graphs and things like that. For me, it was super easy. For a lot of guys, it took a little more buy-in. So that was kind of a struggle we had, but that was something we fixed in 2012, building for 2013. And I used to always like to say, because I was a big numbers nerd and a sports nerd, that we weren't the A's. We were actually the Red Sox, who ended up winning a World Series. Just because Theo Epstein, who was part of that system, then went on to win in Boston and then in Chicago. So I always used to like make jokes that we weren't the A's because they never actually won, but we were the Red Sox. We were then going to go win. So just a little fun. And I think for me, it helped my career tremendously because it took my analytical brain and kind of combined it with my sports brain. And I wouldn't be the water polo player I am today without that transition that James made for us back in 2012.
All right, James, who would have thought, right? Analytics and water polo, like carrots and peas. But apparently they are. I mean, apparently they go together. Was your analytical style born out of necessity, or was it born out of you think there's a better way to do it than everybody else had been doing it, which is like the A's Moneyball philosophy?
Yes.
All right, I like that answer.
It was born out of failure, and it was born out of that there's a better way. I mean, credit to all the players. You know, there's this video online which is like, you know, a lone nut isn't a leader until they have a first follower. And these guys were essentially the first followers that decided to buy in to this, you know, Moneyball style of water polo, which most people, you know, weren't really into didn't think this was a legitimate way of doing things. So they turned a lone nut into a leader in that kind of scenario. And but it was born out of failure in 2011. In 2011, that's where it all happened. In 2012, we ran a giant experiment in that season, and we saw the results in 2012 that the experiment had successes and potential. And then we made the adjustments we needed to make out of 2012 for 2013, and then we added all the talent back together and with some more experience because we were redshirting Goran and Balash. So to me, 2011 was the catalyst for 2013. Without that happening, you know, we wouldn't have been where we were in 2013.
You don't have to, and you can if you want to. You don't have to get into a ton of the minutia into what goes into those numbers and you know how they are calculated and how you view them. But can you give us a little bit of a summation on how that might work in your mind?
Yeah, we do a lot of different things, but essentially we try to look at the way we developed a system to track water polo, and what we want to do is find out how the game was actually won and lost. You know, and so what are the decisions that are happening in every possession that are causing teams to win and lose? And so we studied that after 2011. We took those findings. We then made decisions based on those findings to run in 2012, looked all the way up to the national championship game. And then we also changed the way we play, like what Casey talked about. Casey's role was a critical Moneyball role. And so Casey really created a whole bunch of value to the program that maybe some other teams wouldn't have played that way.
All right. You cut out there a little bit, but that's okay. I think we get the gist. By the way, I want to go around, and for the student athletes, I meant to start a little bit with this, and I apologize for not doing that. I want to get life updates from you guys. I know everybody here is curious as to how you're doing actually in your life after playing. So I'll start with Alex.
Yeah, so my life kind of got put on hold. I was playing professional water polo in Athens, Greece, training for the next Olympics. We were supposed to start full-time training here in May. That's now been paused and rescheduled for next year. So it's kind of just a wait and see until kind of training gets back with the national team. We're hopefully going to start training again this summer and then push towards the next Olympics. So I don't know if I'll be going back to Greece to play professionally or not. It's all up in the air. But yeah, it's an amazing blessing to be able to play water polo professionally and be able to continue my water polo career, because I know not a lot of people get to do that.
Yeah, man, that is so tough. And I feel for everybody that's, you know, in the prime of their life and in a place in life where they finally get to do something like this and it gets put on hold and there's not much you could do. Do you kind of have a thought or a percentage you might assign to being able to give it a go in the next Olympics if it comes around?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% in. I'm still one of the top players in the country, so I have a good shot, but obviously there are other players fighting for my spot. It's just going to be, will the Olympics happen? That's still up in the air, but hopefully they do, and then I'm going to do everything I can and continue training for the next year to make it. So I'm really excited and looking forward to it, and my wife's looking forward to me being done.
I'm sure we're all thinking positive thoughts for you, man. Casey, how about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, of course. I've basically had job ADD since I graduated. So I've been bouncing around from different jobs trying to figure out what the fit is. I went from being a junior college coach and professor to I moved to Austin and I worked my way up from line cook to the general manager of a restaurant. And now I'm back in California again. And currently I'm just teaching yoga, director of a water polo program, and then working part-time at a fitness studio. And just trying to get back into the swing of things, working out. I was training for a little bit of time swimming again, but then of course Corona came by and was like, nope, no more. Hi Kendra, by the way, just wanted to say hi. But yeah, no, just kind of figuring out where the right fit is for me, based off what my skill set is and where I want to kind of go.
Okay, and what was your major at Pacific?
I did my undergrad and my master's when I played all 5 years in sports pedagogy, so health, exercise, sports science, and coaching science.
Awesome. Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, so currently I work for a tech company. I do operations for them. So I'm back to the numbers and asking myself questions on a day-to-day of like, why is this happening and how can we streamline some processes? So I work with like the account management team and yeah, it's cool. Very like customer service orientated. But I think it's a pretty good industry to be in. The tech world is, obviously growing, and yeah, water polo is a cool thought. Like I think about doing it a lot, but the act of it is not happening so much. There's some local clubs here and stuff, so I'll get in the water every once in a while, but nothing too serious.
Did you follow the run of this last team to the national championship game?
Of the Pacific team? Yeah, for sure.
Were you?
Yeah, I had a friend that was part of the team as well from Florida, so I would hop on the streams and check them out as often as I could, for sure. Yeah, I also played in Australia for last year, and one of the guys, Luke Pavillard, he's was a big part of the team as well. So I had some connections with some of his old teammates from Perth. So that was cool to see. I've never actually met him, but I heard and I see that he's a great player. So it was cool to see the new generation.
Did it take you down memory lane at all to watch that team kind of follow you guys' footsteps?
I guess a little bit. I mean, I think like every team has its own story to tell. So I can only imagine like what those guys went through and stuff. But yeah, obviously I can't help but reflect kind of often on, the good times that we had in our journey, for sure.
Casey, how about you? Did you watch this last year's team?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to come back into the States right as the season was happening. So I was able to come out a bunch of times and watch them play. I was able to go, I was at a swim meet in the morning and then I would leave at night to go to the game. So I was actually at both the semifinal and the final game. So it was nice to be able to like see a different team in the national championship from where we were. And of course, just like watching them lose was like, it brought back a lot of memories of being like, oh, I know how that feels. That's not a good feeling, guys. But it is a cool, surreal experience to be a part of. And now that I'm an alumni, it's like really awesome to see that our teams can still get back there and contend for a national championship.
Alex, I'd imagine you were in Greece while the team was making its run.
Yeah, luckily I stayed up late to watch the games, but I was actually lucky enough after my first Olympics to come back and coach with James when this group of seniors were freshmen. And I'll never forget, we were kind of in a rebuilding because it was after me and Casey's senior year, and the freshmen kind of came in and James looked at me and he said, 4 years from now, this team could be in a national championship game. And I thought he was kind of crazy, but then after I started working with the guys a little bit, I realized like they were a super talented group. And I was a little jealous because Luke was supposed to play with me and Casey in our last year, but it didn't work out. But it was just when I was watching the game, it kind of brought me back to when I was coaching that one day and James looked at me and was like, this team's going to be in a national championship in 4 years. And I didn't know at the time that it was going to be at UOP, but that was even awesome. And it was also great because my roommate in Greece was from UCLA and we got in over them. So that gave me a little bragging rights when I was over there. So love that.
James, you really said that? Projected 4 years?
Yeah, and I totally believe he thought I was crazy.
I know I've asked you this before, but I'll ask you this now because this is absolutely the proper venue for it. Can you make some comparisons between this past year's team and the 2013 team, and you can contrast them too?
Yeah, they're very different crews. I would say that the 2013 team, um, there was a very, they were kind of on a mission, and a lot of that had to do with just like different leadership styles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had obviously these guys on the call right now, and Balash and Goran. And it was very, they had fun, but they were a very serious group too. And so I think that was kind of their thing in 2013. And this 2019 team was a little bit more fun-loving, put up a lot of goals. Hopefully that's enough so we don't have to play defense. Kind of crew. They really love just having fun and getting out and getting loose on the offensive side of things. So I think that they kind of came at it from two different point of views, and obviously you can win either way. You can, if you're having a great time and loving what you're doing and putting up goals, you can be really successful. And if you're kind of a more, serious kind of like mentality, that could work as well. So just very different style teams.
Was the 2013 team the start of water polo U? Where did that come from?
Yeah, that was when that's kind of when it started. But I think that in 2015 is really when that took off, because as soon as 2013 ended, we had this mission, get back. That was it, get back. In 2015, we had another great team, which Casey and Alex were a part of, and we got it was a pretty 50-50 call to get into NC2As between us and SC. And to be honest, on paper, the criteria, we should have won. And but that's just the way it goes. They decided to take strength of schedule over RPI, which I think mathematically is insane on account of strength of schedule is a part of the formula for RPI. So I don't know how you weigh a part of a formula more than the entire formula. So that from a math guy standpoint is just insane. But anyways, so we had them on RPI. They had us on strength of schedule, but RPI is supposed to decide who had the best season. So, but by the end of that, we had then shown that many years in a row we were playing at that level, and I think that's when we kind of got dubbed Water Polo U because of all the resources and the fans and the alumni and the way we get behind people. And like they said about the Stanford game at Stanford, I mean that's what we do. When the school decided to pay for the students' tickets and bus everybody to that game, and they got behind us like that, I mean, there's no other water polo school that was going to do that. We had to be Water Polo U.
Alex, what is the essence of Water Polo U?
I think the essence of Water Polo U is just how serious the whole university, the whole town takes water polo. I've played water polo in a lot of places, and there's places that have no idea what water polo is, but in Stockton, it's a huge deal. And at UOP, it's a huge deal. I saw this thing online that was like a UOP bingo, and it had all these different things that you would do at UOP. And like the main one was go to a water polo game. It didn't say go to a volleyball game or go to a basketball game. It was go to a water polo game. And I really think that that's what water polo is. I talked to guys on my national team that went to other schools, and they're all jealous of the atmosphere and everything that goes on with UOP and the tailgates before and the fans. And I think that's the essence of Water Polo U, is that other players look at what's going on in Pacific and are jealous of it and want to be part of that because the school takes it so seriously, the town takes it so seriously. And it really makes you feel like you're part of something bigger, not just, and water polo struggles sometimes because we're such a close, small group. And what Water Polo U really does is kind of bring everyone in from the school, everyone in from the town. And it's an awesome thing and something that I'll cherish forever, and that a lot of guys are super jealous of.
That's a really good answer. And did you know it was like that? I mean, you grew up not far in Loomis, Del Oro High School. Did you have an awareness about water polo at Pacific? What was it like to be recruited?
Yeah, I mean, when I was getting recruited at the time, I think it was James's second year as the head coach. Maybe the first time James ever saw me, he was actually coaching at a junior college. and kind of first time recruiting me, wanted to send me to junior college. And then my senior year said, oh, why don't you come to Pacific? So at the time he was kind of still building the program. And then I think it really started in 2011, like what he said. They started getting traction. Some of most of the great players that were there in 2013 were playing in 2011. And they were just inexperienced. And I think when that trajectory started, that's when really it started to take off. And now I go back when I was from Sacramento, everyone's like, oh, you're going to UOP. I didn't even know they had a water polo team. But now when I go back to the Sacramento area, it's a huge deal. Everyone wants to go to Pacific. And it's kind of captured the whole Central Valley and the Northern California area. So it's pretty awesome.
James, how has that made recruiting easier for you?
Recruiting is never easy.
I didn't mean to imply that it was ever easy, but I mean, from an awareness standpoint, the fact that people are aware of water polo at Pacific, that has to be helpful, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big deal. I mean, we live the brand, and it's people like Mike Haley, who's on the call right now, who are huge backers of our program, and the Eberhards and stuff like this, who've created this incredible environment for us. And when we have the tailgates and we have live music and we have the giveaways and we got the games and we're putting the product in the pool, yes, that for sure all makes the sell to recruits about why they come here a lot easier, because people want to play on a big stage, and we have a big stage to provide them, and I think we got the best stage. So,
Casey, did you have that awareness in San Jose?
So I'll be honest, when I was in high school, I was kind of like oblivious. I wasn't really thinking big picture college and all that stuff like that. And so 2 weeks before my recruiting trip to Pacific, I was like not even responding to emails from coaches. And I emailed James like, hey, can I come on a recruiting trip? And I'll never forget the response. He's like, I'll be honest, is Pacific even an option for you? Because like I've emailed you like 12 times and you haven't responded. I was like, oh yeah, Pacific's like one of my top options. I really want to go there. But like for me, like the area I grew up in, I played Stanford club. So like I had an awareness of all like the big four schools, and that's all I knew of. And then I knew that I was going to swim and try to play water polo in college because I could pay for college a little bit more for me. And so when I was looking through colleges, Pacific and Cal were only, and Santa Barbara, but I never wanted to go to Santa Barbara. Those were only the two places I could do it at. And with Pacific, it was kind of like the perfect fit for me because it was smaller school, smaller town. It's kind of like water polo. I found out was like we were the bigger people on campus, like we were the football team on campus. And so it kind of gelled perfectly for my personality and where I kind of wanted to go. And it worked out well that I was kind of not too late in being oblivious to responding to emails.
James, I want to give you a chance to retort here. Was there like this unrequited love for Casey that you were trying to get him and he just wouldn't give you the time of day?
That happens occasionally. But I knew Casey's coach. And so there's a lot of, I knew a lot about him, and he had a ton of potential. So we were really interested in him, but it's also just like, how much time are you going to spend on each player or how serious are they? And so we weren't really sure where he was at. And so my recruiting style is just kind of a little bit more direct. So.
Hey, I can appreciate that. Kevin, what was it like for you going from JUCO to D1? You went to Golden West College in Huntington Beach. What was the jump like for you?
Yeah, well, I was pretty familiar with Pacific because I almost went there out of high school, but it just didn't work out. James was holding back on me. He didn't want me at the time, but so.
We're getting it all out in the open today, everybody.
Yeah, right. Just bashing everybody. But I think it was absolutely the right choice for me at the time. And then making the move to Pacific was pretty smooth, because I already was pretty familiar with what I was getting myself into. I had an idea about the team and all that stuff, and obviously going to the recruiting trip kind of cemented all of that. And I think something that is kind of underrated or maybe like goes without being noticed is the culture that James sort of established years before all of this, started. So the moment he got there, I feel like he started doing things the way that he wanted to do. and it was evident, from the way players handle themselves in our recruiting trip, and it's really home. Like it's a pretty special niche when you walk through this pool and you see all those like old random like pictures of like old players and all Americans. It's just like dating back, and you kind of feel something. You feel that you're part of a culture, but it's really a small niche tight group, and that's awesome. That's exactly what I was hoping for.
That's really well said. I want to get to a question from the gallery, and again, if you have questions, you can funnel it through Bree, and then they will be presented. What was the biggest challenge that you had to get over during that season? And what was the moment for each of you during the season where you said we can win this thing? And I'll start with Alex.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to overcome for me was just kind of getting over 2011 and really understanding that we belonged and that we should beat these teams, and really getting that kind of knowledge and kind of just belief that we're that good and that we can beat these teams. And I think we had beaten a couple Pac-12 teams early on, but it was still kind of early. We didn't really know. But then we went down and played Berkeley at Cal, and we didn't play our best game at all. We actually played pretty poorly, but we ended up actually winning that game. And that's kind of when I started to realize, like, wow, we can play bad and still beat Cal. Like in 2000, when I first thought about this, Cal was the team that we could never beat, or the Big Four, we didn't really have a chance. So I think that was the time of the year. I remember driving back from Berkeley with Eddie and Malchus and all those guys, and us just really sitting in the car and just being like, wow, we're that good. Like, we can beat anyone at any time. It doesn't matter that we're Pacific and these are Pac-12 schools and that they have so much bigger rosters, bigger money and everything. Like, we're that talented. And I think it was just the belief of coming over. And I think in 2015, I didn't have to do that because I'd already done it in 2013. And I hope that future Pacific teams, because of the past success, kind of don't have to go through that bust through that wall like we kind of had to do early on in 2013.
Awesome. Casey, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say the big thing was kind of like breaking that idea that there's a Big Four and we kind of were like, hey, we're
well, hopefully Casey comes back, but we could shift it to Kevin.
Seems.
He's going.
Kevin, why don't you? Yeah, he's in San Jose, right? Of course. Kevin, why don't you go ahead and tackle that question, and then hopefully we get Casey back.
Yeah. I guess I'll sort of piggyback, a little bit. I think for me personally, it was the mentality shift, understanding like, why not us? I remember I would always ask myself repeatedly, like, why can't we be the best? Why not? Why are these people different than us? Like, we all train the same. We all work just as hard. There's nothing really that sort of stops us, and we have a great system in place. So just always thinking repeatedly of why not. And James always laid out the foundation of, this is why we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to do it. So having that leadership is really crucial. But for me, it really started in the preseason, just getting mentally prepared, and we had some awesome team trips. And it was, I remember, I think we started out did we have like a really early morning practice or something like that in the summertime? Just completely out of shape and just trying to hold my breath, my heart in my chest. But, you just kind of know, like, this is the time, and you take full advantage of it.
Casey, we lost you midway through your answer, so you can kind of go back and re-answer that again.
Basically, it was that, like, the idea that there was no more like Big Four school, that we were now that fifth team that you had to worry about, and that we could compete with all these people. we knew our biggest struggle was when we had a multiple day tournament, and when we started to beat Stanford and we started to beat teams, these Pac-12 teams at the tournaments, we kind of had that mindset that like no one was going to mess with us. And it all started for me. For my biggest development was when we went to Budapest, Hungary that summer, and I'd been playing with Kevin, and Kevin was just like, dude, are you going to keep letting this 14-year-old kid just push you around like this, or are you going to push back, man? At some point, you need to grow up and be a man. And all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a man, Kevin. I got this. But I think that mentality just kept going forward. It was like, we're from the 209. We're not going to let anyone mess with us. This is our game. You're going to make you play our game now.
There you go. The 209. I love it. James, how much of it is when you're trying to crack, as Casey said, the top four, and you're trying to be recognized with, say the Pac-12 teams, how much of it is mental as far as the players go, as far as them recognizing and believing that they can be a part of that group and can be included with those teams?
Oh, belief is so huge. It's one of the most important things. I mean, there's a lot of teams that can win, but don't, because they don't believe yet. And so, like when Alex talked about the Cal game, for sure, that to me that was a watershed moment. Like that's when we knew. And we had this feeling like we could, but then we believed. And then since then, that belief we try to keep inside the program. We talk about that belief, and to never give that belief away. We not only do we believe we can win, but other teams believe we are going to win. And we don't want to give that away in the first quarter. We don't want to give that away ever, And so trying to keep that rhythm, making sure that that belief, make sure those Pac-12 teams know we can beat them, make sure everyone else knows we're going to win.
Another question for James. How do you stay so calm on the sideline when you're coaching?
Clearly not a serious question.
That was a question for me.
Well, I always think
there was one game where
if you ever seen me calm, it's only because of these guys. Okay, and that's the truth. When they bring it and they're on game plan, it's very easy to stay calm. When they aren't on game plan and they aren't bringing it, well, I'm Irish.
There was one game I was watching. I was actually working the game, and dude, I swear, you looked like a Saturn V rocket about to launch to the moon. Like the steam was coming out of you, and like your head was about to blow off. It was pretty crazy. But I guess I'll ask the guys, like, what's it like being coached by James? I mean, he is an intense guy when he's outside the pool, and I'll start with Alex.
Yeah, I'll never forget 2012. Me and Eddie were playing. We weren't really awake. I think it might have been a morning game. So yanked us both, sat us on the bench, turned away from the game that was playing, picked up 2 cups of water and just chucked it in our face and said, "Can you two please wake up?" And that kind of set the tone from there on. And just, he brings the energy. So if you're not going to bring the energy, he'll bring 10 extra for you. So it was just good. It always worked well in the mornings, and it got us going. So it's something that is awesome. I love James's energy, and I think it's an asset for the team and everyone.
Casey, how about
I
James?
don't remember that at all.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like my style. Like I do well when I know someone just has an understanding, a plan, and just kind of trusting the process. My advisor was huge on that when I was doing my master's degree. And so playing under James, it was like I knew he had a lot of information. And so I would just like, even if he was yelling at me with his face was going purple, I was like, okay, what information can I extract from this? Okay, don't make this mistake. Or yeah, that water was really cold. Maybe I won't do this again. So for me, I had a lot to learn, and that was my mindset throughout my entire playing. I wanted to analyze the people I was playing against, analyze the coaches, analyze the players. And James was so analytical that I could very well vibe off of what he was doing and what he was saying, and just try to continuously learn from him and learn from his style.
Kevin, how about you? You could jump in on it.
Yeah, James, it took me a little while to understand James. I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into, but I mean, his energy is contagious. Like the way he leads his team and the way he holds himself, I think is exactly what you need. Like he's awesome. It's clear, that I think every one of his players has some kind of appreciation for James, because we're obviously all still in contact. And if you were to call me up, I have no problem handling anything that he needs. And I think that's the kind of relationship he sets with his players. But he's great, the cone tosses to the water bottle stuff and the clipboards slapping. It's all good. But
yeah, that's one thing I forgot to say. I think one thing that's really lost is James. He has to build a relationship with us first, like softly, and then he can bring the crazy Irishman. I think when you see that craziness, you don't really see the relationship that has been built over years with his players before that, and so that we have this trust that we know he just wants what's best for us, and we just want to do what's best for him and the team. And so I think that something that you don't really see everywhere on the sideline is that relationship that we've built together to be able to have that fiery guy on during game day.
I like that, Alex. I like that you brought it together with the building of the relationship, because there's a lot of people see the bluster, but they don't see the true connection that is there and behind that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm going to wrap it up by asking all of you, like I asked the women's volleyball national champions last week, what's the legacy of the 2013 Pacific men's water polo team? And I'm going to start with Kevin, and I'm going to go in reverse and go to James last. But Kevin, you can start it.
Yeah, I just hope, it sets, or I guess not sets because the culture was already established, but just kind of deepens the what water polo at University Pacific is all about, that camaraderie and that family vibe, and just working hard and going after your goals, I guess.
Casey?
I would say that it's kind of just like, no matter if you're the underdog or whatever it is, you can come out on top and you can still make your way with hard work, dedication, and kind of sticking to the system and being willing to take a complete 180 from what the system used to be and learning from the past and growing forward, and kind of just building foundation for always learning and always growing and always changing.
Well said, Alex.
Yeah, I think just building off what those two guys said, it showed that didn't matter where we came from, didn't matter what countries we were from or anything like that. If you come together as a team, you can be successful. And I know in 2015, we fell back on 2013 a lot, and kind of learned from it. And I think, like James said, it wasn't all happened in 2013, but we kind of just carried the ball across the goal line that year, or came up short on the 1 yard line. But I think it's just, it's something that we can look back, and I'm sure teams in the future will look back to. I'll always say it's the best team ever in UOP history, no matter who comes along. But I think it's a good milestone for the program, and can be a learning tool for the future.
James, to wrap it up.
For me, I think their legacy is they set the standard in almost every way. You don't get to that place without going through challenges and adversity. And we hadn't talked a ton about that here, but all those guys went through challenges and adversity to get to that moment. And there was a lot of not easy days, and there was a lot of failures that were along the way to get us to that point that we had to fight through and stay loyal and collected as a group. And that's really big. And then they had to have the work ethic and the mentality. And every year, these guys ratcheted up the work ethic and mentality until they got to a point where they had a championship habit mindset, in and out of the pool. And then the other thing that I think is just really big when you think about set the standard is just their accountability. What always strikes me when I talk to these guys is every time we get back to talking about 2013, the first thing that happens is they start telling me about the mistakes that they made. And that's how this call started off. Start talking about the things, ownership they had in their own game was so huge. That's why we were where we're at, in 2013, is because they didn't blame anybody. Every time something happened, they took responsibility, and every guy on the team did that. And to me, that's one of the biggest championship habits there is. And you can't really be great unless you can take that ownership. And at the end of that game, every guy was pretty much crying, and so we're hugging each other. And everyone I talked to that game and giving them a hug, everyone apologized to me about losing the game and told me it was their fault. And To me, that's the standard. That's the standard of excellence. These guys held themselves to a level, and they weren't going to blame the refs that day. They weren't going to blame me. They weren't going to blame a teammate. These guys own it every single day of their lives, and I'm just like so proud of these guys. So they set the standard.
That's awesome. And by the way, any prediction as to when we're going to be back in the national championship game again? You seem to be good at doing that, so I'll let you end on that.
Fall 2022.
Book it. Fall 2022. We'll all be there. Guys, it's been a pleasure to go down memory lane with you. Thank you guys so much. And good luck with everything in the future. And please stay safe. We're glad to have you always back on campus or wherever. It's great to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody
Thank you,
enjoy,
everyone.
and we'll see you soon.
What's up, Kendra? What's up, Zach?
What's up, Jeff?